commit.
Hello, Internet. It is us. It is the 80s kids. You may note slightly less jubilation this time than last time, because, of course, last time we'd never really done this before. It was a bit of an experiment, whereas this time we're all used to it. We're all old hands. We're all cynical. Hello, I'm one of the 80s kids, and I am Leo. And joining me tonight are some more 80s kids. First of all, joining us from Australia, we have...
I am Ian, and I am also another one of the 80s kids, but I am not alone, for there is another.
Yes. Oh, and he's dodging around in front of the camera.
Sorry, did we not give you sufficient notice?
Oh, it seems that Justin has... We've got a Justin problem. He's gone into feedback mode. Justin,
okay.
Come in, Justin. No, okay, so introduce yourself then to the...
Hello, I am obviously technically savvy as ever. I am Justin, and 80.
What's really funny is that we all look like we're broadcasting at night, although obviously two of us are in the UK, and Ian doesn't need to simulate nighttime. He really has it, for he is in Australia.
Fortunately paid to move the sun around to the other side of the planet.
It's just you had a word with the guy in charge. Right, so we're going to start, as we go on with all this technical kerfuffle. We have a couple of videos which we are now going to attempt to play to you as a little celebration of our 100th episode. We've tried this when we're off air, but as I have discovered in the past, Google Hangouts is a bit weird when it comes to being on air or being off air. So I'm going to press the button and see what happens. Here comes the YouTube application now. Yeah. And welcome to Revenge of the 80s Kids. I'm one of the 80s kids, and my name is Leo.
I am the other 80s kids, and my name is Ian.
No! You're getting the nationality of the researchers wrong!
I did not realise I was supposed to hate this film.
Here comes the wife.
Blood/gore and people having limbs amputated.
I've never seen Jaws.
Oh, it's James Bond does blaxploitation.
There's nothing else I have to think Scientology for.
Thank you, wife, for your comment, which I shall ignore.
Ever-increasing set pieces of domestic violence.
Superman in the movies, he's never not been a douche.
You don't know what the 80s are going to be about until you've already lived them.
Burn, is this your bun?
But that's what I think people found boring, that they weren't all beating each other up.
They go around kidnapping babies who all...
My hand burst forth from Gravesend.
What? That person was a woman the whole time?
I didn't really like Supergran. Found it annoying.
It's out.
People thought that the Ghostbusters Spectrum game was a good game, but it wasn't.
Go in there, save the hostages, shoot people.
We better keep that secret from the government.
Kids running out of films, absolutely screaming their heads off, crying.
You take the Fabergé eggs, I throw in the heroin.
With all these boys with these toys who didn't have a clue what they were named.
Is this usually about the emotional journey of the man in learning what a bit of a dick he is?
We're going to dump 50% of things that you're wondering about and never mention them again.
The thing about Superman's home planet and his race of Krypton is that they're all boring.
Tentacles being shoved in people's mouths and
Drama is two people standing in a room talking urgently.
I can't quite believe Honey, I Shrunk the Time Lord.
This says I can't talk about Doctor Who on the podcast. They might look like gay pride Ewoks, but they are the Care Bears.
My faithful brother Nancy!
How to kind of get into women a little bit.
I have not seen it again since, and I've had no desire to go see it again. I probably will never see it again.
See yourself as a child, Ebenezer Scrooge, so young, so innocent, so filled with wonder.
This 2014 is going to be the year of the biscuit.
Ian isn't here.
I have a real issue with Who Framed Roger Rabbit as a woman.
Of course, then you go back and watch the beginning and you realise that Leo is, in fact, a complete and total bastard.
Is that the wife? We'll get to you soon, don't worry.
Hey, that sent some kids into a death game.
Well, at the time, everyone was obsessed with, nuclear war.
I just want to break in. The writers say no.
He doesn't turn up until halfway into the movie and then just disappears again.
Bible and Harry Potter, both obviously works of fiction.
I'm just saying that to raise some dramatic tension.
Got a thing for kind of creepy kids, they kind of disturb me.
It leaves you with many questions. One, why was Kevin Costner a huge star?
There's something slightly holy and mystical about this small grey box.
One, Shia LaBeouf. The end.
What is it with men and vaginas?
So this is a year. We've been doing this for a year.
Some of us have been doing it for a year. Some of us turned up late. I'm not naming any names here, though.
Well, Justin's controversially disappeared. We don't know where he is.
Oh my god, now we've got dinosaurs, we can do anything.
Oh, I must watch that new Kevin Sorbo show. I really enjoy his performances. Said nobody ever.
We're also going to bring back William Shatner as Captain Kirk, and this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to kill him.
Batman and Robin and the Postman this year is a gift.
In a world where Hugh Grant seduces everybody, you want to be like this guy.
That was a weird double bill. I saw the Lego Movie and the Zero Theorem on the same day.
And the dreams you had that night still haunt you now.
We've got, yes, Judge Dredd taking off his helmet, we've got him kissing Hershey, and I hate it and despise it with a passion.
It's not just tentacle porn, guys. It's high quality, grade A quality animated tentacle porn.
We're short to show topic this week due to the fact that I haven't watched quite enough Patrick Swayze movies.
Dirty Dancing, let me tell you the little story of Dirty Dancing, bless you all.
Again, I have a watering can of tepid water.
It just shows how pitiful, how wretched, and how badly managed the prequel trilogy were.
Let's raid some scripts from Gene Roddenberry's attic and see what we can do with them.
They just go, oh, you're racist. That's a dick move, because that's not the discussion we're having right now.
A toast, Leo! The Titanic! The best holiday ever!
He's kind of in that, woohoo, I'm being crazy mode.
And that is why Leo can't be here today.
Aliens have taken over the school, Mr. Frodo!
I will possess someone's body, randomly kiss someone, and when I walk out the restaurant, it explodes. No reason, just, devil.
We've lost Robin Williams the man, but all the things that he tried to do are still there to be seen.
So on one hand you give us, and the other you take us away.
Oh, awkward moment noise.
Let us never do another episode ever covering anything about the 90s ever again.
No, not that far round. Now I've got to turn the other way round. Ah!
Well, I'm worried about any crimes I might commit in the future and the police that will police me for thinking it.
He is the smartest guy in the room. No one else can bring the dead back to some shambling semi-semblance of life.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I was invisible, I'd go check out my ex-girlfriends,
But this is crap. And it's like, I'm not even a Transformers fan, and it's rubbish.
Lord of the Rings, the films, I treat as like, oh my god, thank god I don't need to read Tolkien again.
Put it on the floor, take down your trousers and drop a big Cleveland steamer on it.
I don't care. I'm going to take my advance and go buy a house.
Each Sean Bean death is its own lovable and special jewel that should be allowed to be enjoyed.
Yes, gentlemen, it's time to put on our tinfoil hats.
They're shooting at us!
Then run faster!
This isn't really very Christmassy.
Well, I have one word to say, and that word is hoverboard!
And we are not film sponge absorbers, are we, Leo? We're film digesters and regurgitators.
Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have some bacon and a couple of eggs? Oh, fried bread.
The rot at the core of our glorious empire has been exposed. You're emoting. Stop that.
Yeah.
Seriously? This was for children, was it? Okay.
I completely blanked Shia LaBeouf was in this. Just a black hole where he inhabited the movie.
You're trying to be intelligent, but you haven't got the brains. That means that you're incredibly tedious.
Am I an 80s kid?
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, so very much so.
Were we ever going to see Batman return? Oh, yes, we were, with Batman Begins.
I'm a lifelong Wachowski's apologist, and I cannot apologise for Jupiter Ascending.
But gentlemen, we do have a problem. Our listeners are about to find out why we do an audio podcast.
What more have we got? Have we got maybe the janitor service, keeping the FBI clean and keeping crime clean?
It is possibly one of the best pure emotional fairy tales ever done. Sorry, end of story.
And of course, I have to point out, at the end, it was all a dream. Or was it?
Many thanks to Ian for that video retrospective. That is the equivalent of our clip show, essentially.
Yeah.
How did
Thank
that
you very
go?
much.
How did that go for you, Ian? Then did you? I noticed that the second one was slightly longer than the first one. Any reason for that, or just we start talking a lot longer at that point?
Was there a reason for it? No, it's simply because the audio clips I was getting were longer. The first one was more snappy. Whereas the second one, I felt the second year we were really hitting our stride. I mean, the audio for the first section was done last year when we did our 50th, In fact, the video was done last year when we did our 50th. I just had to make one more video this year, which was the second one on the end there. Yes, so I'm glad to. It makes me feel proud. It makes me feel like somehow at the end of it was like, oh, we have ascended to great heights. I can't believe we've done 100 episodes of this crap, Leo. Holy shit, we must have our own life.
Well, the thing about it is that I have to say that the second one might be longer, and it's weird. That obviously it explains why our shows have got longer, because at the beginning we spoke in short, choppy sentences, and then as we went through past the 50 mark, our verbiage just began to expand in the middle of sentences. That's where our problem is. We've got overgrowth in the middle, subclauses, extra subclauses. What a nightmare. So I should mention to anyone that wishes to ask us a question live that the Q&A app is live, and you can put your questions in. And hey, we'll probably answer them if indeed you ask any of those questions to us. But in the meantime, I should point out that although this is kind of like the Queen's official birthday, it's our official 100th show. But then for some reasons, it's not the 100th show. I mean, let me enumerate the ways in which this is not our 100th show. Way 1, we did a show 0. So because of that, show 99, as we mentioned last week on the 99th show, is in fact the technical 100th show because it's all sort of computery. I believe that the idea of doing a show 0 was yours, Ian, on the theory that it was something that we could just forget and pretend didn't exist if we wanted. Isn't that how it goes?
Advice from podcasters, which because I wanted to do a podcast for some time before you approached me, so it was great serendipity, and a lot of the advice was, well, it's just kind of a thing I observe people do in episode 0, and usually it's because they're just kind of doing introductions and saying who they are, and then they get on with things in episode 1. It appeals to some strange mathematical quirk in my head. Also, the other advice I had was, kind of just delete your first 4 episodes. You won't be very good. So, yes, has it thrown you out completely? In addition, we've done 2 bonus half-hour episodes, one about Doctor Who, one in response to an email we got, and, of course, we did our test Google Hangout. So, all up, lots of bits and pieces hanging around.
Yeah, I mean, if you add all of those things, it could count as actual shows. We've done 104. So there we go. But 104 is twice 52, so happy birthday to us. Although our first ever show was on the 27th of April 2013. So there we go. And then, of course, Justin came along just as the 80s were dawning in 1980 at the invocation of... You're never going to be able to get away from Hawk the Slayer now, are you, Justin?
Why should I? It's always near my heart.
I remember Justin's first episode very well. Unfortunately, we have no evidence that it occurred because he should have been in episode 13. But that was the infamous instance. We lost 2 episodes on the trot. I think we lost 80s television and we lost Indiana Jones. I subsequently re-recorded both of them anyway. Yeah, that was when Justin came over to visit you, and so we had to do a very rushed Sunday recording of episode 13 as a filler. On the subsequent occasion, we lost 2 episodes. We didn't bother. Took a week off.
But yeah, well, I mean, we're going to. I mean, in a disturbingly short time, in fact, we're probably going to do a more in-depth retrospective of the water that has passed under the bridge. For, of course, the end of the 80s kids is nigh in a good way. In a good way.
I haven't heard about this. This is news to me.
And that's not an Australian nigh. It's
Hey, mate.
Good work, Justin, with the interpretation. You brought Australia into it and everything. I think probably this is as good a time to discuss this openly and live on air as any to say what's going to happen, because it cannot have escaped anyone who listens to the show's notice that we're about to step out of the bounds of the actual original task. We've got 3 shows left to get to show 2009, not the number 2009, the 2009 show. We can't go from 100 to 2009 just like that. You have to work at that sort of thing. But yes,
It'll take.
But then, of
show
course,
up on the show. I'll realize we're Romulus.
But once we've got to that point, like that's it. I mean, we set out in show 2 that is what we were going to do, and we will have done it. And so, the question arises: what does one do then? Well, the answer is turn off all the lights, sweep the barroom floor.
Well, if you remember, Leo, there's the giant ceiling fan. We just all float up towards it. That's the deal, right?
But I mean, that will be the end of the 80s kids in terms of us tromping our way through all of that cinematic history, but it will be the beginning of a whole new era of the 80s kids.
Yes.
So, yeah, and what about you, Ian? What do you think we should do next? Or no, just tell people. What are we doing next? I'm tired of talking.
Next? It's all right talking. Well, once we've completed our great work, we shall be, well, personally for me, I'll be enjoying having my Saturday nights back. But more generally speaking, we're going to be doing a comedy series of some variety or another. It's like, it's almost like it is a spin-off. Those skits we do at the beginning? Imagine like that, the series, only better. Much, much better. Tighter, more focused. Because when we do the skits at the moment, there is kind of like, well, we're doing some gags some light gags to service a theme that we're going to be talking about. Whereas we're going to be employing, the various set of skills that we have learned down to do a half-hour installments of a comedy series, which will spin off and continue the adventures on the skits. That's one project. We have many irons in the fire, I think, post Revenge of the 80s Kids. Oh, and but just tell them the name.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say. Oh, sorry, it's the name. What name? Sorry, who was that?
We had a conversation, Leo, where we decided what the name of the spin-off was going to be. Initially, I was like,
yes,
obviously highly memorable by the sound of it.
Let's call it Odyssey of the 80s Kids. And they're like, no. And then we basically decided that it's going to be the 80s Kids, but the sort of prefix title would change with every episode. So, maybe one week we'll have, roundabouts of the 80s Kids. I don't know. Ice creams of the 80s Kids. Star Wars pastiche of the 80s.
I remember that conversation now. But yeah, so yeah, that's what we're planning to do in the future. Just because I mean, what's really weird about it is that we started out to do a sort of informative, I suppose, or a sort of non-fiction podcast, and yet by the time we've got here, there is some measure of plot arc going on to our adventures. So I don't know quite.
It is definitely some measure, and it is definitely some plot arc. That it's definitely true. I mean, of course, it's not going to be wall to wall as battling Big Bay, because it's going to be a bit dull. It's going to be quite packed. And like I say, it is just one of the things we're sort of planning, because now we sort of have a certain confidence about us, and certainly the skits themselves are quite interesting, because it's kind of something that's just evolved over time. The whole gentleman we have a problem thing didn't actually kick in until episode 26, so that's quite a way into our run before we get a running gag. And it was purely because Justin wasn't there, and normally the episode started with like, "Oh,
that
hello."
That is a very unusual situation, of course.
It wasn't. It's a rare event of Justin not being there. We were left agog, and normally we started with kind of like, "Hello, I'm Ian, and I'm Leo, and I'm one of these kids, and over here's and that was all fine and dandy. But Justin wasn't there, and I was like, and I just pitched to Leo the idea of going, maybe I should start by going, "Gentlemen, we have a problem," and I iterate some issue with Justin not being there. That would be more exciting than just kind of going hello. But then Leo was the following week was like, no, we've got to keep this going now, and so we've had ever increasing. I mean, it's got to the point now. I think we have had one or two episodes. Yes, we've had one or two episodes where we haven't done Gentlemen, we have a problem. Normally we do a script, and then in post production I'll realize I haven't said Gentlemen, we have a problem, and I'll sneak Gentlemen, we have a problem somewhere into the dialogue somewhere. But it's not always possible. So it's been an interesting running gag. I quite like it. I wish I had a T-shirt of it. Gentlemen, we have a problem. There's just something so kind of brilliantly awful delightful about it.
So there we go. Well, gentlemen, we do have. We don't have problems today. Today we are not at home to Mr. Problems. We do have a question, and we will be coming to the questions shortly. We have more than one question, to be honest, but we've got one
Why,
ready to go. But we shall.
Would
We
it be
shall
to hit some
definitely come to that.
Viagra? And
It does not mention Viagra. I will tell you what it mentions in a minute. But first of all, let us take just a second before we get into the questions to pause and reflect. We are here, and we have come down. I mean, basically, even those of us who have not done 1975 through to the end have done 1980 through to the end. I mean, we're 3 away from the end. So, Justin, how are you feeling about the whole enterprise? Are you sorry you ever decided, hey, this would be a good thing to do?
I have to say that it is one of the highlights of my week. I actually really enjoy this. Now, it's not that I don't imagine there's thousands and thousands of people listen to this. I just think that it's a kind of really cool thing to do. I mean, look, I don't need much encouragement to talk about films that I either love or despise. It's just anyone who knows me knows I can waffle on and on for hours about such things. So, but combine that with an entertaining format, and also I see Leo reasonable enough, but of course I have never actually seen Ian in the flesh. That's probably a good thing, maybe. But no, now is not the time. But no, I haven't. So actually, it's really good fun anyway to have a conversation each week, and then happen to be talking about things you love. So personally, I've enjoyed all the experiences, and I'm glad. I was, feeling like, oh, okay, this is kind of coming to an end, but knowing there are other things, there are other things to come, then that's all good. And I feel like I think I've got my nostalgia fix. I think well and truly, I have enjoyed relishing and revisiting and rewatching all these kind of films that I grew up with. So it's been a bit of a hoot for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think at the beginning I listened back to the shows, but over time I listened back to the shows just to see how the show is, really, which is kind of weird. I mean, it's not. You want to check. Hey, is the show okay? Did it go well? Let me have a listen back. Besides, when you're actually recording a show, it's different to when you listen to it back. But of course, yeah, it cannot escape people's notice that we did our live summer predictions a few weeks ago, and obviously if we only do so many more shows in this particular strand, we're not going to get to the end of the summer to see how our predictions turn. So there will be other webcasts and what have you, but it will all be framed and put together in this way with the 80s kids science fiction serial type thing, which will continue the wacky adventures of the 80s kids. But now let us get on to the questions. I'm going to answer the questions that are up in the Q&A app first, and we have two questions here from Eyes Wide Open, and the first question, which I'm going to answer right now, is hey, what about us Aussies? Which is a little bit of a general question. Thankfully, there is a sub-question that focuses it a bit more. What was the best ever Aussie movie? Hey, it's a topic for debate. And I think I've got some candidates in mind, but let's throw it open to the floor. Anyone got an idea for the best ever Aussie movie? Justin's making noise.
No, I'm just checking. You jump in. I'm just refreshing my mind because I know I've probably got a couple of contenders.
I think an obvious one somewhere in the top 5 must be Mad Max 2 Road Warrior. That has to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the one people would reach for straight off the bat.
I mean, Crocodile Dundee was popular, but it's a bit outside our remit. But Dundee 2 isn't, bizarrely enough.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Crocodile Dundee. I mean, it's just the question is, what was the best ever Aussie movie?
I'm not looking at remits. I'm not looking at science fiction things. I'm looking at just films that I've really enjoyed.
So yeah, I mean, I think that Crocodile Dundee actually, I don't know, does it stand as a contender? I mean, it's certainly probably the best known. Aussie movie.
I haven't seen it for some time, but I remember enjoying it tremendously at the time.
For Australians, they're very affectionate for a film called The Castles, which is about a man who has to fight off a conglomerate who wants to buy his house to build a runway for an airport, and he has to go to Canberra, and he's a little guy that goes into court. That's quite kind of a national treasure in Australia. There's Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
There's some good ones.
Wolf
I
Creek.
remember. I'm gonna add in Muriel's Wedding, which I just loved. I really like. It's a kind of a very British sense of humour, that kind of black humour. Anyone knows me kind of knows I'm into that kind of stuff, dark humour. And Australia shares that, and they're very good at kind of grotesque caricatures of characters. And
We elect most of them.
A tirade of those. So yeah, I like Australian comedies.
I have to say, on the subject of Muriel's Wedding, recently I caught up with a sort of a follow-up to that. It's not like a sequel or anything, but it also stars Toni Collette, and it's by the same director called Mental, which we watched just the other night, and it is. You saw that? Yes, I really enjoyed that.
That's good. Really enjoyed it. Brilliant.
Aussie movie? Yeah. I mean, the use of the Sound of Music in that film, it would be enough to change people's view of that movie forever. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to hedge on. For me personally, I would say that probably Mental was one of the best Aussie movies that I've ever seen. Mostly because the wife really enjoyed it too. The wife does not enjoy Mad Max 2. Muriel's Wedding is one of my wife's favourite movies ever of all time ever. So I think we're probably going to have to come down in that PJ Hogan area on that, for me personally. Ian, are you still sticking with Mad Max 2 for yourself?
Well, personally, I think of the ones I've seen, mind you, there's some here which I didn't realise were Australian films.
Oh, tell us
like,
about
Romeo and Juliet is apparently an Australian film.
Oh, of course, Baz Luhrmann made that.
Baz Luhrmann. Well, I was gonna mention kind of Baz Luhrmann really, because I think, I visually, I just absolutely love his stuff. He is, an auteur in that sense of that grand cinematic kind of thing. He can paint amazing pictures. Some people might find them over the top, but I'm a big fan of his stuff.
Moulin Rouge, apparently Australian
which is
film.
pretty intense.
Yes, Baz Luhrmann again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had forgotten the whole oeuvre of Baz. Oh, and of course, Australia by Baz Luhrmann, which I have watched. I'm not sure anyone else.
I've seen that.
I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did. It's a big, sweeping, massive epic, isn't it? I rather enjoyed that.
I didn't watch it.
It's a lot less theatrical in the sense that it's still a big cinematic film, but more in the vein of kind of the old style Hollywood films. It's not. It's less Baz Luhrmann, if you know what I mean. It's less kind of crazy set pieces and madness and insanity. It's a little bit more conventional.
I didn't go see it because it was like a huge. It was almost like it was mandatory for Australia. You have to go watch this Australian movie because it must be a success.
It's a love letter to Australia, no doubt about it.
Yes.
I mean, the landscapes are just jaw-droppingly beautiful.
It's a wonderfully beautiful country, as long as you don't mind being sunburned. Just completely on a side here, by the way, we're now getting Netflix in Australia finally, and the adverts for it, however, are irritating me enormously. Now, to be fair, there are two prongs to it. The first is just Netflix advertising itself, which is doing the sensible thing of showing the programs it's going to have on there, and thus the reason you want to subscribe. Here's the films, here's the shows. Ooh, Kevin Spacey. But there's also another strand, which is Optus, because I think Netflix have teamed up with Optus, and Optus is like one of our telecom providers. And Optus decided to get Ricky Gervais, and it's just Ricky Gervais sitting in a chair like a pompous arse going, yeah, well, I've been paid lots of money just to sit here and tell you that Netflix is coming along to Australia, and that's all. I'm not going to do anything special. Can't be bothered. I was like, screw you, Ricky Gervais. This This is Netflix. What kind of optics are thinking that somehow Ricky Gervais just talking to me like he's bored and only being there because he's been given, by his own words, a truckload of money is going to induce me to go get Netflix. It's really smug and obnoxious, mind you. It's Ricky Gervais. So.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, of course, that I think that Netflix is pretty much. For some people, it's mandatory, and I would totally think that you would fall into that category. So it doesn't matter how irritating the adverts are.
It's like selling drugs. You don't have to advertise it, do you?
But let us move on. We've got some more questions here. The most important of which being, have you seen The Castle? Now, I personally have not seen The Castle, I have to say. And Eyes Wide Open is telling us here that they live where it was filmed, the Kimberley. So that unfortunately is lost on me because I have not seen it. Have you seen it, Ian? This film
I've seen The Castle. Of course I have. It was.
Tell us about it. This is what we do.
What I was talking about. It's the guy whose house is going to get demolished to make way for an airport.
Yes.
I mean, it's just. I mean, it's full of like people in it who are kind of national treasures to Australians. I suppose, I know, if you're talking about a running gag, they're always looking through the sort of classified listings, what people are selling, and like, they'll go, that's a bargain. When they find something they think's not a good deal, they go, he's dreaming. I don't know why that's funny. It just is. The repetition of just going, he's dreaming. Anyway, yes, it's a heartwarming tale of a guy who just won't sell his house because it's his goddamn house, and so he fights the what's it called, the eminent domain purchase of his home, and he teams up with a lawyer too. That's essentially the story. That's all it is. It's a guy who gets to keep his house, and instead he has planes flying overhead at the end because he wins. He doesn't care. He's still got his house. It's just kind of that Australian stick it to the man mentality, I think, because Australia has always had a bit of a trouble with authority because authority was being a bit of a warden to them.
So there we go. Well, yes. To be honest, I don't think that people have really pushed that on us in this country. No. I don't know whether it got a US release. I'd have to go to Amazon and actually search it out, which will make for thrilling viewing. So I'm not going to do that right now. But we have two other questions to answer today. One of which may possibly come from someone that we actually know, and that is.
It's not your mum, is it?
And sorry, right. Someone's just put Eyes Wide Open and said Australia was filmed in the Kimberley, not The Castle. Sorry, it's because we were talking about Australia and it was not clarified. So, wow, gosh. Well, I have seen Australia, and gosh, that is an amazing play. Yeah. The locations and sets in that are incredible. So. Wow. Yes, I live in Port Talbot, which has some vistas of its own, which I may share with you at some point in the future. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Right. So thank you for the clarification. But yes, this next question may come from someone we actually know. It was sent in prior to the show coming on air. It said, have you sorted out transport to my wedding, Leo? So that was a question that came in via our survey, and the answer is, well, I have a car, so yes, I have sorted out. I in fact sorted out before the wedding was even planned. How about you, Justin? Have you sorted out transport to Matt's wedding?
I have.
So there we go. So
the train is involved.
He can rest assured that that everybody has sorted out getting to his wedding. So I'm sure he's very grateful about that. The other question, and this in a way. This is my favourite question that we were sent because of the touching naivety that it shows about the way that the show is actually put together. It said, if I send you a chili, will you eat it live on air? I don't know. I think that meant all of us. And it's like, well, okay, so in theory, even if we were willing to partake in this, it would take some logistical sorting out on one end to have me and Justin in the same place to try the chili at the same time. The logistics it would take to get Ian the chili, even were he willing to sample it, I don't think anyone's prepared for that.
No. I have a suspicion I know who sent this because I have a friend who owns a chili farm.
Right.
The thing with the list of suspects is quite small. So how dare he use our podcast to try and popularize his own company? Mind you, if he's using us for advertising...
Well, to be honest, you're just doing that. If you hadn't said any of that, no one would have known about him and his chili farm.
No one's still going to know about it. That's the fun thing.
But anyway, yeah, no. The thing about it is that the chili question poses problems not just on the logistical level of how would we all be in the same place to eat the chili, but also on another level. There's a thing of if we were all to be sent a chili in the mail, well, my chili might get to me reasonably intact, especially seeing as I imagine this chili farm, if it's the person I think it is somewhere in the region of the Avon Valley near Bristol. Is that correct, Ian?
Yeah, Wiltshire Chili Farm.
Wiltshire,
Yeah.
Wiltshire, there we go. So that's not too far for the chili to come. It's not that far to go to Gravesend.
No, not really.
To you. So you'd be able to get one. So we'd each be able to have a separate, it wouldn't be the same chili, but it would be, within a... However, sending vegetables through the post into Australia, how is that likely to fall out, Ian?
It's they're a bit touchy about seeds entering this country because of our unique ecosystem. But if Jamie, if you're listening, feel free to send me a bottle of some of your hot sauce. I don't mind. I'll take a free sample.
So there we go. So that I think wraps up the Q&A section of the show nicely. Now, what this tells us is that we've been doing this for 100 shows, and one thing I've always maintained, or one thing that we've discovered, which I do think is true, is that happy fans are quiet fans. This is what we
must
discovered.
have the happiest fans in all the internet. They must scream themselves.
Their happiness is deafeningly silent. Yay!
Just lie there in incoherent bliss when the episode comes on and wake up a week later, just in time for the next episode.
So the other thing is that I thought the other thing that I know about podcasts is that there are a lot of lurkers when it comes to podcasts. I've listened to podcasts. I'm a massive fan of podcasts. I've listened to 200 episodes of a particular podcast. Have I ever been anywhere near the websites they mention, there we go, or any of that stuff? No, I haven't. I just listened to the podcast. So I decided to, throw open the doors and say, look, thinking, what would I do? What could someone do to persuade me to interact with them? I thought, well, putting a single checkbox on a page and say, could you just check that to say you've been here? If you've been here, leave the lights on or whatever it is. I thought that might be enough, but apparently not so much. That's what we've discovered.
I think, Leo, you should have had an opt-out strategy. You should have sent that questionnaire to everyone on the planet, and if they opted out, then fair enough. Otherwise, we assume we have a fantastic viewing figures.
So we have 5 billion listeners. We should get some sponsorship.
I think, to be fair, one thing I've learned as I have moved from the domain of sitting in front of a keyboard typing code in all day into the domain of, more like media-y type things, is that you have to tell people about things a hell of a lot in order to get any traction. And I do think that with this, there is. And this is the next question that I've kind of come up to, which is, why aren't we reviewers? Why do we not review films? And what I mean by that is, I am conscious, in fact, mentioned on the old XKCD cartoon about someone being wrong on the internet. And we're doing a non-fiction show, and so we want the things that we say to be true. So when I listened to our first episode, and first of all, I spend a long time in one of the very first episodes describing how the guy who did The Raid was now going to direct Godzilla. They're both called Gareth, and they both have second names which are a bit Welsh, but they're not the same guy, because the guy who did Godzilla obviously did Monsters, and the guy who did The Raid subsequently went on to go and do The Raid 2. So, in fact, that whole thing was nonsense. It just seemed in my head at the time to make sense that a guy who'd made, like a big Asian action movie would then go on to revitalize Godzilla, and that the guy who did Monsters would go on to do some other romantic comedy with some special effects in the background, which indeed, was almost what Godzilla was. Ooh. I liked Godzilla. I don't know why I'm doing that. But yes, I think it's just my bitterness that having spent 20 minutes talking about this content, oh God, I'm so wrong, and I just keep being wrong, and that's the nightmare of just being completely inaccurate. So I guess I've kind of kept quiet because it's like, well, what if I'm at liberty to be wrong because nobody's really listening anyway. So there we go. Is there a reason why you don't? Is that not true? Why is that not true?
We do have some listeners. I reckon we have about 5 or so listeners who listen to us weekly, most of whom we know personally.
Yes.
And of course, in the archive, it's not like you have a catchment of weekly ratings. It's more like flypaper. It just accrues listeners over time. So they're a slow building thing. For me, why aren't I a reviewer? Honestly, my brain works more like a stomach. Things go in there and they are slowly dissolved and digested, and eventually something perhaps will, drop out the other side, which could be described as my opinion. And I think the metaphor still works. To be brutally honest with you, I'm not very good at thinking and reflecting on things necessarily on the fly. If I have had time to think about it and crystallize some thoughts, I sometimes come up with some pretty good things. But it's almost like, you said, Sue was talking about head people and heart people. I was like, I'm definitely a head person, because you ask me, how are you feeling, Ian? I have to sit down and have a think about it. It's like, I'm not that in touch with these sort of instinctive reactions. I have to muse on it, reflect on it, digest it, and then I will come to some sort of formalized opinion which has a seal of approval.
Yeah.
Right, fair enough. And just, I think that what I was trying to say more about. No, I was going to come back to you, Justin. Sorry. About reviewer. I don't mean reviewer. I mean, we are not presenting. We're presenting a non-fiction show, but it isn't a factual show. What I always wanted to do was just talk about how we felt about the nostalgia value, and that's why you get to indulge. And then we did news shows, and that actually involved doing news. And obviously, the first time we did that, I spent 20 minutes being completely wrong. So I guess that's where we come up with that. But is that?
I just see this as an extension of something you would have if you've gone to see a film and it's affected you in some way, and then that thing that I always do is then speak, on the car journey home. And you rant and you rave, and it is very much what you feel. It's not an analytical kind of examination of the genre, and I would not be comfortable in doing that, because I'm totally with you. I am not someone who is necessarily correct all the time. I'm just saying what I feel about things, and that is opinion. And I'm not a kind of person that wants to give that as the opinion. Because it's just what I feel about it, and I might be very passionate about it, but at the end of the day, that's a very personal experience I've got. And I think a review has a certain amount. A reviewer comes a certain amount of responsibility, that you have to be incredibly open-minded. You have to be even-handed. You have to examine all these things and be obviously knowledgeable about all various aspects of it. And that is not something I'm interested in doing.
Ian, carry on. Yeah.
When we first started laying down the concept for this podcast and we're talking these things over, it was, the term I didn't coin, I stole it, was, interesting conversation is interesting. And that was essentially where we're going for. We talk, and I find our conversations interesting, but that's because that happens to be us. But I felt I could sit here and listen to this if I was so motivated. If it was somebody else, if it's interesting, it's interesting. So it's just us chatting. It's all it is, us chatting and pretending like these films are some kind of culture. It's some sort of high art.
Well, I think one of the things that we've kind of happened upon by accident is that I noticed there's a lot of stuff on the internet which makes obviously this is one of the keys probably to our low listenership. The people who have a lot of viewers that you can't help but notice are coming past are people who go on and they wail on something, they find some film, and one of the interesting things about that is that often when they get to a point in their broadcasting career, where they take, they've run out of things that they can comfortably take pot shots at, and they start going for something a little bit riskier, and then it doesn't really come off. You go, that's not really a good criticism of that thing, and it's just this, never-ending river of snark. And I've always, we recorded a podcast in the Vast last night, and it was our JKR, not to ruin any surprises. I'm not going to say what it is, but one of the films I was like, should I really do this film? Because I like it, and I think it's interesting, but it's really hard to talk about it in a positive light. And one of the things is that we are a ray of positivity that comes out of the ether, and we try and be, we might say, oh, that year was terrible. We'll go through the terrible films. But the films we want to talk about are all the interesting and worthwhile films of the year, not the ones that we want to gem. We have done a few episodes about bad movies, smelling things coming. We have placed that sort of negativity in a particular arena, but largely we like to be positive. We like to celebrate, and maybe this is a reason why we're less popular, because we go around being nice to people and stuff. Losers. So yes.
Well, we appear to put a watering can of tepid water over our venomous opinions.
A prop!
A prop! This is the thing! You thought I was just joking. No, I really do have a watering can.
Oh, dear.
It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right.
Thank God Ian hasn't been using a metaphor of a cat in a microwave for some time. Otherwise, that could have got a bit messy.
The thing of it is, we do honestly mean everything we say. I think that's where we come from. We're not putting on any particular acts of when we're outraged. We're outraged when we love something and gush. I have gushed uncontrollably like a fanboy, spinning like a Catherine wheel about certain films in a very uncontrolled, undisciplined way. It's just we're just being
Ian,
honest.
where's the Catherine wheel? I can't imagine that now.
So yeah, I think that, one of the things that possibly has started to happen, particularly as the production schedule of Hollywood cranked up over time, is that our year shows have become something of an event. Each year is an event unto itself. And I was chuckled in listening back to show 2 to say that right at the beginning, it was like the first thing I said that we proceeded to completely ignore from that point on was that we were only going to select 3 films from each year each. That's 6 films at the time, Ian. 6 films per year we were going to discuss, and it would only have gone up to 9 with Justin, and then it's kind of we just didn't even bother, as far as I can work out. We just never even.
We took a while there too, because we did our top 5 of the 70s first, and then other things were going on as well. Yes, we just kind of tackled the year and did them. I imagine you made a decision at the time of like, oh, let's just go through this. It's not many films. We can get through this in an hour. And that's obviously, spiraled as the years have gone on. I think, obviously the intent...
You're ascribing way too much thought to me. I just literally forgot that's what I said. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, fair enough then. I didn't actually. The episode where you laid out the great plan, I've never listened to.
But the thing is, I'm rather pleased we didn't anyway go with that plan, because it's not very organic. It's very rigid and regimented, and now it's a bit. It's a bit like the alphabet shows are like that, but that's only one film we talk about of each letter. So that's 3 films. And that works fine for that, because that is a very specific remit. But I think when you're talking about films, very often we'll go off on tangents about other films that those films are related to, and if you all the time you're thinking I must restrict to this, it would be very restrictive. Obviously, this is why our shows are quite long, though, because we don't do that.
The idea was that we would go watch the particular films and then comment upon them, which meant that I would have no excuses to go, no, I haven't seen that film. Which is, I should have a T-shirt about that. That should be my motto. No, I haven't seen that.
It did. That does cause some relief when you haven't seen something, because if we'd all seen everything, wow, we'd have 3-hour-long podcast. But we've had another question from Eyes Wide Open, which is, did you review Predestination, the movie about time travel and self-insemination of sorts. Now, as I don't believe I've even seen that film, and when I first read it, I was like, premonition. There are a billion films called Premonition, and one of the things that we know about films called Premonition is that none of them are any good. But no, I've not seen a film called Predestination, and now that it's been described like that, I guess I'm kind of in a two minds as to whether I want to see something.
I'm sure it's not like a porn film from like the 70s or something.
I'm
sounds
pretty
a bit
sure
weird.
that I'm pretty sure that it's not, but the way it's been described is somewhat NSFW. So yes, so there we go. So apparently the answer is that none of us have seen
It
this
was
movie.
well. Apparently, it came out last year.
Oh right, okay. Well, in that case, we didn't. Yes, we. I mean, the thing about it is, we used to do what was called a news show, and we still kind of do what now we call them topic shows, and we might invoke something that's current when we do a topic show, but we don't actually do, because we just decided, well, there was a little bit where there wasn't any real news, and we thought, well, this is a bit silly because, you know, it doesn't go with the rest of it. So, yeah, we don't really do stuff. The only things that we do that are really current affairs are badly predict what's going to be a big hit in the summer and then come together at the end and discover how badly we have predicted those things.
Something we will do, though, now that, you know, we are moving on to other things, we will be talking about more current films. So we will do shows like not obviously it won't be like every month we'll review what's going on, but we will certainly lump them together and talk about films that are reasonably recent as occasional shows, because, you know, why not? Because we like films, we're still going to see films. So yes, that is, you know, we could possibly do a special where we could do time travel films.
Oh, yeah, we'll do
quite easily.
I do remember. I remember this film now. I haven't seen it, but I do remember the buzz about it. It's one of those great paradox films that loops
It's
around.
got very good reviews. You know, I've never heard of this film.
It's an Australian film. It's only made a 3.4 million. Not that you know, not that ratings count. But yeah, I heard it was a very clever sort of not time. Yeah, time loop. It's like a paradox story. You know, it's self-fulfilling thing with a twist.
Okay.
With a twist. Right. Okay. So we have one final item on the stack of things to get through in this show, and that is that in that same show, the second show where we set out what we were going to do, that we're nearly at the end of. Ian, you described the feeling at the end of that show, which was our second show ever. It's actually the third one we recorded because of show 0, but obviously we'd only actually put out into the world 2 shows at that point. I said, well, we've just decided that we're going to tromp through 35 years of cinema and you know, chew over the cinematic experience of our lifetime. How does one feel? You said you felt that it was a bit like you were staring up at the sheer cliff face of the mountain before you, and just, you know, the impossible, unattainable heights that lay beyond. And now we're ridiculously close to reaching the peak of that particular mountain. So Ian, how does it feel? What's the view like from up here?
Well, I pull out my guns of manning up. That's a new book thing.
Oh, visual metaphors are flowing. Fantastic.
It's been, you know, I did not realize how prophetic that statement was. I mean, so like, we've got a lot to do, and yes, it was a lot to do, and now having done it, I'm immensely proud. I mean, I don't want to get too much into kind of congratulating ourselves, because we're not done yet, and by goodness me, our last episode is going to involve a lot of patting on the back. So, yes, it's how do I feel about it now? Oh, immense pride. We've got better at doing this shit, because at the beginning, it was definitely like, skip ahead, I don't want to hear myself talk. But now, actually, this sounds terribly egotistical. I actually can listen to myself talk. I couldn't for a while. Now I feel I've got to a certain standard where I'm acceptable half the time. So I feel I've got better. I don't waffle quite so much. So I'll stop now to be concise.
No, well, I think that there's definitely things like, I mean, I listen to the beginning, I'm like, oh, I'm so wrong about this, and I'm so wrong about that, and I'm just there being wrong all over the place. And not only that, I mean, what's really interesting as well is that I noticed at the beginning, Ian, you used to be a lot more this is how I feel about this sort of film, and you kind of stop doing that, which I miss. So I think we should try and rally in the last bit to get into it. If you listen to some of the early shows, you will hear. Well, it's like I would talk about a film, and I suppose it could be because we've got so close to the present day, and you know, whatever. But you used to. Right at the beginning, get quite detailed about the way that you felt about a particular genre. You have to go back and listen to the shows, to be honest, to get what I'm saying. But it's like, I mean, one of the things that I always enjoyed, which is a shame that it's coming up again, a chance to talk once more, is that every time we hit a Star Trek movie, that was a golden moment where we would just go, Ian, take it away, and there you were. It was one of your key things. But
that's what happens when I've actually seen a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but what interests me is that from my own perspective is that I listen to some of the stuff at the beginning, and over time it's like I've accrued film knowledge from somewhere. Like I didn't go out of my way to research this stuff, but now I feel like I listen to it. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew a hell of a lot less about that particular period of time than I do now. I mean, for God's sake, we've all come out of this with a better working knowledge of the career of Patrick Swayze than we had when we went to it. That has to be a good thing. But Justin, how are you feeling? Been here
well, as someone who, rather than climb all the way up the summit, I kind of got the scenic railway halfway up. So, but I do feel the kitten-based coaster of exuberance. Sorry, that's all I can find on hand. But I think actually. It's like anything, really. It's like when I started to teach, I had to work out. I had to talk in front of people. I had to realise that I actually knew quite a lot about stuff, and the act of talking brought that out. And in the same way that you kind of just, this is our lives, right? We've spent our entire lives watching these films, and sure, you've had discussions here and there, but revisiting all of that has definitely given me a more in-depth feel, understanding of some of those things, because obviously I'm getting different perspectives that I haven't got before, and I'm having to look at new films, or certainly look at films in another light, in a far deeper aspect than I may have dismissed because they weren't quite my thing. So that all of that has been really insane, as well as being something that I've never done this before. So as obviously most of you will be painfully aware of that fact, but that's been fun, right? I mean, that's great. I've really enjoyed talking about that thing, learning. So yeah, it's been a fun experience.
It does definitely change the way that I look at watching a film. When I watch a film, it doesn't so much the new films that I see, but once a film's been around for a while, if I put it on again, I'm looking for certain things about, what should be good about an old film that you are not, even a film from 2005 or whatever, you could put it on and be like, has this stood 10 years? You could tell, has this stood the test of time? Because things start to creak pretty quickly. That's what I discovered. So these are definitely things that I have experienced. But if people want to tell us about further things not live at the time that they have experienced, where, Ian, might they go to do such a thing?
Oh, we're done, are we? Oh, right.
We are at the end of the agenda. There are a few more items.
I was just going to add, you've been quite disciplined, Liam, that you will sit down, you'll watch films relevant to what we're talking about for each episode, so you're coming in with some fresh material. The simple act that you have sat down and watched in chronological order films year on year on year, and you've seen development of careers and trends and film techniques, I think surely that must give you, of all the people that can develop an opinion more or less on the fly, you are definitely one of those guys, Leo. You just kind of go in there and go for it, whereas I'm more tenuous to stand back and not so sure. So I think, purely by the act of having done that, of you watching and watching and watching lots of films year on year as we've booked into the upper timeline, surely that must have. That's presumably why you just feel so much more knowledgeable now. I would assume.
I guess it's some kind of osmosis. Yes, it is definitely some kind of, because I haven't consciously. I've just been like trying to keep up with what we're doing, and I've also wanted to test certain things that I thought, like, I don't believe that films have got lazy, or I think that the film culture has just changed. And it is this idea that, you know, just seeing a list of what films came out in a year and understanding how Hollywood's production schedule has cranked up incredibly, and you can see in the train of what came out how the multiplexes evolved and all of this stuff. It gives you a perspective on matters that I think is different to the, you know, I've had some things confirmed, and the whole thing what I said about happy fans are quiet is definitely true, but it's something I didn't know going in. But when you think about all the most popular things on the quiet, like we've talked about Supernatural, Stargate SG-1, the fans there tend to be pretty quiet, and that's what I find. You know, noisy fans are not necessarily contented fans. And talking of which, if we have some discontented fans, where might they go to vent their spleen in? I got second segue. 2 segues, 1 episode.
Well, Leo, I'm going to get out my back scratcher of closing spiel and talk to you about our Facebook page, which you can find on Facebook / Revenge of the 80s Kids. And that's 80s as in numbers, so 80S. Please go there and like our page. There's our community hub. We put links to our podcast there, as well as links we find interesting. But podcasts are what it's all about, so please point your web browser towards 80s Kids. That's 80s as in letters, CEIGHTIS kids.podomat.com. Please go there and subscribe to our podcast using the podcast aggregator of your choice, or download to your PC for dark reasons of your own, or quiet fan reasons of your own. But this is only where our most recent podcast can be found. For the legacy of our podcast, you must go to...
Well, you can go to leostableford.com, where you can find many of our old shows currently in place, nestled among the various videos and other content that I have. But it is time for a surprise, and I am going to do this live on air right now. And that means that there may be some technical jiggery-pokery going on. Ooh. I'm going to hit the screen share app. And yes, that looks like the screen I want to share. Here we go. I'm about to share a screen.
Oh.
And it's coming. Yes, there it is. This is the80skids.blogspot.com, which currently cannot be seen by the public, but will be shortly after this live broadcast revealed unto the world. And there are some things here that every show has its own entry, backdated to the date of original broadcast. And what that means is that if we go right to the end of the older posts part here, wait for Blogger to redirect us into the thing. Oh, there's the background, which is made up of the things of our show. There are certain podcasts, for example, episode 1, episode 0, and what have you. I never archived them onto my blog, so you would never be. You could have found them; they were publicly available, but you would have had to make some effort. So there we go, and I'll stop sharing now. So yeah. So that is official and ongoing home of the 80s Kids, the 80skids.blogspot.com. So that is cool. So Ian has now shown us his visual metaphors. I have shown you what I've been doing on the quiet. Justin, do you have anything to show the people at home?
I do. So I thought I would show you my very first work in print. This is going back a little while, though our fans might have. I've mentioned this in the past, going back a while, but this is a copy of a 1979 edition of 2000 AD. I was 8 at the time. My father was an art editor, but before there were the cries of nepotism, this was sent in anonymously and judged by other people. But if we turn to this page here, oops, so that is my version of Judge Dredd, age 8.
Oh, wow, and you won a whole £2 for that.
Oh, £2, which I cherished. I've saved since then, and it's now worth £3 in interest, and it's, you know, I should keep saving it.
Okay, so there we go. Cool. If people want to see more stuff that shows how your career has progressed,
yes, things have progressed a little bit more than that, fortunately. You can see examples of my work on my DeviantArt page, which is justinwhite.deviantart.com.
So yes, there we go. And that if I'd have actually been thoughtful, maybe actually we could just do if somebody could hum the girl from Ipanema for a moment. There's nothing to see here. Oh wow, Justin, that's shrill. Maybe humming would be better than that whistling.
Sorry.
Oh, good grief.
I'll bring out the Pringles.
Yes, that's better. Right. The Pringles of distraction.
What?
Right, I'm going to do another screen share now. Here we go. Sorry, I should have done this in advance, but I didn't think of it. But here we go. Second screen share. There it is. JustinWyatt.deviantart.com. So there we go. There you can see that is what Justin does. Well, I thought, suddenly it occurred to me that, it's, yeah. Okay. So there we go. So that's JustinWyatt.deviantart.com. So there we go. That is all the news that there is fit to print for this time. We shall be back very shortly with show 101 and forging forth. The next time you will get to see our delightful body double stand-ins. I think they did really well with the lip syncing this time, where we were in our secret studio. I don't know where they find actors who look like that, just to sort of give the impression that we're just regular guys who have.
Well, the thing is, they can't really see the beauty of our natural forms because it would make all our listeners feel rather inadequate. So we have.
Get real, guys. I aspire to be a normal guy. I look at envy at normal guys.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there we go. That's we will be forging on, and the next time you'll be able to see us is probably when we wrap up the whole damn business for now. So that's going to be sometime in late June, early July. So you've got a long reprieve until then just to hear us. But we've got some excellent shows coming up in the last run, so we hope that you'll join us for those. But until that time, good night, everybody. Goodbye if you're in a night place, or good day. Have a nice day for the rest of you, and we shall say goodbye. Well, I'm saying goodbye from me, and Ian is going to say.
I'm going to say I'm going to sheath my sword of a fond farewell.
He just keeps coming up with them props. Justin.
I can't top that, so I'm just going to say goodbye until next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.